Welcome to Women in the Music Industry, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the remarkable women who are breaking barriers and making their mark in an industry that has long been dominated by men. I'm your host, Rob Wells, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on this empowering journey. Each episode of this podcast will be dedicated to exploring the inspiring stories, accomplishments, and struggles of the extraordinary women who have defied the odds and made waves in the music business. Together, we'll delve into the journeys of female artists, songwriters, producers, musicians, managers, executives, and all those who have helped play a pivotal role behind the scenes. We'll uncover the stories that deserve to be heard, as well as celebrate the triumphs, challenges, and unique perspectives that women bring to the music industry. Whether you're a fan of music, an aspiring artist, or simply curious about the inner workings of the music business, this podcast will offer a valuable perspective. Together, we'll celebrate the power of music and the strength of these inspiring women. So join us as we amplify their voices and together pave the way for a future where women in the music business are no longer the exception, but the rule. Today's podcast is sponsored by the Songwriter's Piano, an easy-to-use app for songwriters and lyricists to use when coming up with song ideas when there's no instrument around or nobody to play one. With the Songwriter's Piano, one can easily play commonly used pop songwriting chord sequences at the touch of a screen, in any key, in 3 different chord variations, all played on a gorgeously recorded grand piano. Download the Songwriter's Piano by Play Like Me apps today, found on both iOS and Android stores everywhere. Welcome everyone to another episode of Women in the Music Industry. For those of you that are just joining us for the first time, welcome. For those that are returning, I am so happy that you're back. This is going to be a fantastic episode as it features the lovely and ever so talented Pam Sheyne. Here's some background information on Pam. Based in Los Angeles, New Zealand-born Pam Sheyne is a multi-platinum selling songwriter, singer, and mentor. Her songwriting career has achieved success on a global scale and includes international hit records and song placements in numerous films and TV shows. With 50 plus million record sales, 100 plus platinum sales, she is also a prestigious Ivor Novello Award winning songwriter. As a singer, Pam has performed and recorded with many high profile artists, including Elton John, Celine Dion, the Pet Shop Boys, Cyndi Lauper, Tom Jones, Laura Pausini, Lulu, Daryl Hall, and Dave Stewart. Pam is best known for co-writing the global hit and Billboard #1 single Genie In A Bottle for Christina Aguilera, just a little tiny tune that's out there. Other artists who have recorded Pam's songs include Demi Lovato, Jason Derulo, Jessica Simpson, Dream, Seal, Corinne Bailey Rae, CeCe Winans, Tina Arena, the Backstreet Boys, and Camila Cabello, who earned international recognition and platinum status in the USA, as well as a top 10 UK hit for her single, Crying in the Club. In the TV and film world, Pam has written end titles for The Princess Diaries, Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen, and Golden Globe-nominated film The Young Victoria. Pam's songs have been featured in TV Disney films Camp Rock 1 and 2, Jump In, Hannah Montana, Sunny with a Chance, and numerous others. Pam additionally co-wrote and sang the theme tune to the NBC series Dance Your Ass Off and appeared as the songwriting mentor in the first series of BBC TV's Fame Academy. Pam served on the board of SONA, which stands for Songwriters of North America. She is an advocate who fights to protect the value of songs and songwriter rights. SONA was one of the advocacy organizations instrumental in lobbying for the Music Modernization Act, which passed unanimously in 2018. Pam and her longtime collaborator partner, Richard Harris, launched Songwriter Camps in 2018. They offer songwriters mentoring through camps and workshops on both the craft of songwriting and songwriting for sync. Holy smokes, that's a lot, Pam Sheyne.
I can't believe you read it all out.
I'm about to pass out, I think, right now from just like lack of oxygen and just lack of breathing.
Hi, Rob. Great to see you, my friend.
Great to see you. I love hanging out with you. I've known you now for what, maybe 15, 20 years, something like that. But I don't know. Oh,
Don't
yeah.
tell him.
Yeah. I met you years ago. I forget who introduced us, but we got together to write a song and we just got along like a house on fire. And we've been good friends ever since. And it's a real pleasure to have you here. And I thank you very much for agreeing to be on this podcast and video series.
Thank you, Rob. Well, thank you for championing women. I commend you.
Thank you. It's been a long time coming. This has been a dream of mine to do something like this for a long time. And I finally just, said enough's enough. And here we go. So we are episode 3 and counting, and we'll see how many episodes I get out of this until they're lowering me 6 feet in the ground. Right.
That's awesome. Just pre-pandemic, I remember the Annenberg Foundation putting together some statistics, publishing some statistics on women in music, women in film. And the figures were so alarming to me and my friends at how few women there were compared to men in areas like sound engineering, production, business, on the business side of things. So since that time, that's probably, 4 or 5 years ago, it might even be more, I have really seen an uptick in the amount of women getting into these different areas and becoming leaders in their own right. So I think that's what you're talking about today, and I fully support it. And am one of those women who loves to champion and put on their shoulders another woman. So
awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you for agreeing to be a part of it. And I'm very passionate about this for sure. And I know a lot of people are. So hopefully we're going to be able to feature lots of people and just really, if this podcast can help turn somebody around and realize that they can have a position in the music industry and have a great career. And that would be absolutely amazing. And I would love for it to be equal. I would love for in the future, just, that this isn't an issue, that it isn't 2% of all producers are female. I would love it that it's everybody gets a chance. Everybody gets a shot at doing this. And it currently just doesn't make any sense to me when I read things like that. How can it be so crazy? So whatever we can do to make changes, that's a good thing.
And a lot of it is just conditioning and history. I think it's more subconscious. You don't even realize it on a deep level. But, when we were kids, and I'm talking our generation, when we were kids, they were handing out recorders and violins and, glockenspiel to the girls. The boys got the bass guitar and the drums and those kind of instruments. And, we were just conditioned to think that, those are the instruments that we should be using, not a bass guitar or an electric guitar. So this is something that needs to change on a deeper level going forward in education.
Absolutely. I mean, there was even a time when women were not allowed to play instruments at all.
Wow.
Way back in the day, way back. I even think about just to my own mother. She always tells me that she wished that she could have been born when I was born, or when kids are being born right now, what she would have done with her life had she been born at a different time, because for her, going to university was not to go get an education. It was to go to find a husband.
What?
Yeah, that's basically what people did, at least in her corner of the world. It's you go to university to find a husband and then get married and start raising children. And it's so crazy. And we're not talking about that long ago. My mother was born in 1944, and it's just such a difference. So I'm very happy to be seeing a lot of changes happening, and I'm happy to see, mindsets changing as well, that, everybody gets an equal opportunity to follow whatever dream it is that they have. Let me ask you, can we go back a little bit to your New Zealand days? And,
cool. My memory, serves me well.
When did you first discover a love of music? Was there some particular moment that you can remember that you just thought, man, this is so cool?
I always loved singing. So I was always singing along and listening to music. My folks were big music lovers, very social people, always music going on in the house, specifically country music. So I grew up on country music and artists like Dolly Parton, Tammy Wynette, Charlie Pride. My father sort of played guitar a little bit and just loved music. So I think I started guitar lessons when I was 7. And then a little bit later, possibly, I don't know, 10 or 11, I started singing lessons. And I remember my mother taking me to this local sort of gathering once a month to a folk club to sing. And I was a painfully shy child. So it was really, really always very hard for me to get up and play and sing. But I did, and they managed to get me up there. And this was a folk club called Titirangi Folk Club. And we used to take, the entry was 50 cents and a piece of firewood to get in the door. But so I used to do things like that, and then also go on talent shows for at school, that kind of thing.
Was the shyness gone by that point when you were going into the talent shows, or did you still feel?
Always had it. Still feel really nervous getting up to perform, and I think most performers do. I guess the more you do it, the more often you do it, it just becomes complete, natural thing. But I think there's always some sort of element of nerves going on in front of people, worried that you might mess up or forget your words or whatever it was. I used to have these dreams of forgetting my words or either going in my slippers to a gig. But those were my early days at school. My mother encouraged me to go to singing lessons, guitar lessons, and I used to listen to lots of music. And, I was that girl that danced in front of the mirror with my hairbrush.
Did it change from country music to pop music at some point?
Yes, it did. It did. I went from country music to ABBA.
Fantastic.
And I think Waterloo was the first song, totally blown away by ABBA. And you don't realize it then. Looking back now, I think, oh my gosh, what a great masterclass in, melody writing, listening, to ABBA, lyric writing, listening to all that country stuff. And all the years after that I actually ended up, singing covers and singing cover bands in London.
It's interesting. I have such memories of my parents listening to Roger Whittaker nonstop. And I know we've discussed Roger Whittaker before.
I was hoping that you weren't going to bring that up.
Well, yeah, I won't bring up any more other than just the fact that we listened to Roger Whittaker a lot. And but the thing that I got from Roger Whittaker was the string arrangements that were in those songs. And the horn arrangements and like the whole orchestral element to it, that even though I was secretly, just hating all these songs that we'd be forced to listen to all these Roger Whittaker songs on 8-track tape on these long drives across Canada. But what I got from it was just these like crazy, amazing orchestral arrangements that I love to do now. I love to do string arranging and orchestral stuff. And it was my masterclass of all that I just didn't realize I was soaking that all in. And same thing with going to church with my dad being a minister. I wasn't too happy about going to these church services, but I was listening to these hymns over and over again. And some of these hymns were really amazing. Like just the writing was so strong and the chordal arrangements and the melodies and how it would just lift in the chorus and just feel great. But just, all these different master classes that we take in, right?
Subconscious learning that we don't even realize that we're doing at the time.
Mm-hmm. ABBA's fantastic though.
I will admit to your listeners that I did, which is why Rob brought it up. I did do a backing vocal, I think a tour with Roger Whittaker as his backing vocalist. And, there are very old-fashioned kind of songs. So, it was interesting also singing them, but I also had to whistle them because he whistles a lot in his songs. So
I know.
It's an interesting gig, shall we say.
I think we all have stories like that. We've got, things that we're kind of embarrassed by, but you learn from them as well. You learn from all these different experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we will move on from Roger Whittaker now. We never have to talk about Roger Whittaker ever again. So ABBA and Waterloo, you loved that. And was there at some point when you're singing in front of the mirror and you got the hairbrush and you're singing along with Waterloo, was there at any point that you thought, I love listening to these songs. I'm wondering if I can write my own. I'm wondering if there's something that is burning in my mind that I want to write about and try writing my own song.
I don't know if I had that feeling then, but I do remember a moment making up I was actually, I was talking to Martin the other day, telling our friend Martin that I was lying in the bath one day, and I remember this moment starting to make up a melody idea, and it's very, very still clear in my mind. I remember the song. It was a very sad song. I was quite lonely at the time, quite clearly. And it was a song about a friend. And I started singing this melody, and it was like something hit me big time. It brought my emotions, and I started crying as I was singing this melody. Well, either that or it was just hell of a sad. I don't know. But I remember that feeling, and when I look back now, I think, gosh, maybe I knew at that young age that writing songs was such a way to express myself, and I loved it so much. So yeah, I did sort of write a few songs. I wouldn't say I ever sort of maybe finished them or ever recorded them. It wasn't until later, until my late teens, early 20s, that I started really digging in and finishing and going, I this is something I would like to do. I was already a singer, and I'd had a gig at a hotel, in a hotel band in London, because I left New Zealand at a fairly young age. My father passed away,
I'm so sorry. I had no idea.
Yeah, I was 15 years old, and he passed away, had a heart attack, and just, overnight. And we were very close, and it was such a huge shock to my system. And my brother and sister at the time lived in London, and I was on my own with my mum. But a year later, and she's met somebody, and might have been just a little bit longer, but she wanted to get married to this guy, and I just didn't know where I fitted in. So I exit stage left to London and lived with my sister for a few months before I figured out what I wanted to do. And she got me a job in the travel industry for about a month, and I was like, that's not for me. Mm-hmm. And found an advert in the Melody Maker for 6 nights a week at this hotel, and I had to play electric guitar. I bought myself a Strat, and I went JC 120, and ended up doing this gig for a couple of years.
Singing and playing guitar.
Doing covers, yeah.
Wow. And of course, doing covers is such a great experience because you get to hear all the great songs over and over again, and
singing hits.
And really inspecting what makes these songs hits, the great melodies and the great chordal arrangements and the choice of tempos and all of that, and then seeing how it makes the audience feel when you start to perform that. What a great experience.
Yeah, it's really great education. And I didn't know it at the time. I was just, in the moment and singing those songs and enjoying just being able to express myself through music.
And were you going home after these gigs and starting to, write your own songs as well at the same time? Okay. Yeah, and developing your craft.
Yeah. Yeah. And developing.
What was the goal at that point? Was the goal for you to be an artist yourself, or were you happy doing covers songs? What was the?
I think after, so I had a career. I had a career in singing for about 10 years. So that went from doing covers, doing pub gigs, doing weddings, bar mitzvahs, doing one-off gigs, traveling to Morocco for a night, traveling to, over to Europe, because I lived in London at that point. And that then sort of went to doing a cruise, and then doing a club band, and then backing vocals for some different artists. So it wasn't like an overnight thing. I built it and built it and built it, and really did a lot of hard work, grafting, like you do in anything, any line of work, and then got into doing session work and tours. And it wasn't until the end of my sort of singing career, or as I say, I haven't really stopped singing, but, work for hire singing. I decided, that was the Pet Shop Boys tour that I did in 1991. And I decided that at that point, that's when I wanted to look to try and get an artist deal, because I wanted to be an artist.
You have performed with so many amazing people. One would think that you'd be totally satisfied. Just, you get to perform with the Pet Shop Boys and go on all these worldwide tours and all the different people that you've performed with. But I love the fact that still you had this in you to just, get your own thing going on and get your songs happening as well. And that's it's amazing. You've had so many different great opportunities in the music industry. It's very impressive.
Thanks, Rob. I mean, that was the plan, but the plan didn't go to plan, as they don't always do.
Life has its own plan for you sometimes.
Exactly, and I think looking back at the time, I probably wasn't ready to be an artist. I think one of the things that I've always been a fairly private kind of person, and I wasn't sure whether I could deal with fame. I don't know whether, a lot of these artists actually think about that aspect going in to wanting to be famous, what that actually means, and the pressure that is on you, for these, and I'm talking high profile artists, like Whitney, and, look at the effect that it had on her. I think you have to have a certain personality and strength of character to let a lot of that stuff just roll off your back. It's tough. You have to not have a private life. You can't go to the supermarket for a pint of milk without being noticed and recognized. And I think my protecting my private life was the right thing to do. And, I who knows if that would have even happened. At the time they were signing, when I was looking for a deal, they were signing 15-year-olds in London. Celine Dion had been a huge smash, and they weren't looking for another Celine Dion at that point. And not that I was that, but they were starting to do the TV show, Let's Find a Girl off a TV show.
Right.
Idol or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it wasn't the right timing, and it kind of worked out well because I then focused on my songwriting and started having success at that. So,
Why did you ever?
My creative, fulfillment, I was fulfilled by writing songs for other people, and it wasn't something that I went into doing sort of consciously, like, oh, I'm going to now write songs for other people. It was like, oh, somebody wants to cut my song? Sure.
Were these songs originally for your own artist career, and then it sort of started morphing over into passing them on?
Yeah. My first cut was Sheena Easton.
Oh, great. Amazing. What a great artist.
Yeah. And then I started looking at it a little bit differently, like, oh, okay, I can do this. This is kind of good because then I don't have to give up anything on the fame side of.
Like I tell people all the time, I would not wish fame upon my worst enemy. It's really, really hard, and it can really mess you up. And especially if you have the fame and then you lose the fame, and how that can really, depending on what age that happens at, if you're really young and you get all this, the world is giving you things, and then suddenly you are just not being given anything, and it can really mess with a person's mind for sure.
Yeah, and you have to know going in what you're giving up.
Yes,
because that's not, if you don't feel that you can handle that, your mental health can handle that, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Mm-hmm. It is nice to be able to go to the grocery store or to go to the restaurant, and you can hear the song that you worked on being played.
Exactly.
But nobody knows who you are, and you can eat in peace. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you get that sometimes, though, that when your song comes on, do you feel like, tapping the shoulder of the waiter and just saying that I was a part of writing that?
Yeah. It's happened to me a few times. And it's like, I want to tell somebody that's my song. But most of the time you don't. But occasionally, if something happens and it's the right moment, then I'll go, oh, I wrote this song.
There was one time I was in the grocery store and I felt like telling the cashier, the person that's taking all the groceries, and I felt like grabbing them by the shoulders and just saying, hey. But then I thought I had this vision immediately of me being let out in handcuffs, right shortly after. So
yeah, exactly.
I know. Okay. If you don't want to answer this, you don't have to, but I'm sure you answer this a lot. Can you tell me the story of how Genie in a Bottle came around?
Yes, of course. This was 98. And I lived in London and putting together a trip to go to LA. I live in LA now, but didn't in those days. And a friend of mine recommended me to work with Steve Kipner and David Frank. She'd just been out here. This is Jody Wilson, a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And she'd worked with both of them and come back and said, oh, I just have a feeling that you guys would write a really good song. And so I came to LA, actually on a very slim budget, because I think at the time I was out of a deal and I was doing a TV show called Friday Night Fever. And, our bank balance wasn't all that, shall we say, but I wanted to invest some more money into coming on this trip. And I felt good about it. And I came out on my own. And because by that time I was working with, we were together. My first publisher is my husband. But at that time we were just working together, publisher and songwriter. And he was very good at, challenging me and pushing me out of my comfort zone. So I had started doing all these different writing trips, and I think I'd been to LA a few times, so I needed to do this trip. So went up to Topanga Canyon, which is where both David and Steve lived at the time, and it was the first song we wrote. David had prepared 3 tracks for us to listen to. So, bearing in mind, I'm walking into the room with two complete strangers. So we're having to get to know each other pretty quick, and it's a bit like speed dating, and so we chose this one track, which is the track that ended up being Genie, and it stood out for its double bass drum, and I don't know whether it had the da 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 da, that piano thing at that point. Maybe he added that later. I can't remember.
The intro.
Yeah, the intro thing, that riff, but. We were like, okay, this one stands out. This is different. Let's write this. So it was the first song we'd ever written together. Within sort of 4 hours, we'd written the song. It had started from a line in my book, A Century of Lonely Nights. But at that point, I was working paper and pen. And I had in the back of my book, all these different titles and lines and things that I'd written down. And so the song starts with, I feel like I've been locked up tight for a century of lonely nights. And then it led to this whole concept. We talked out the whole concept. It led to Genie in a Bottle.
Incredible.
But it wasn't called Genie in a Bottle. It was called If You Want to Be With Me originally.
Interesting.
It wasn't until we sent it to Ron Fair, who was A&Ring Christina Aguilera's record, that, he came back and said, I love this. We're looking for a first single. I'd really love this for Christina. She's a new artist. And at that point, we didn't know who she was. We had to do our due diligence. And within a week, we'd had a couple other artists looking at the song, Paula Abdul and a girl group called Innocence, which was on the same label as Christina. And we had to really get our shit together and figure out, who we were going to say yes to. But the timing was just perfect for Christina because they were looking for first single. The record was ready to go. They guaranteed the production for David and Steve, which was another whole income stream for them.
That's huge. And so we went with it, and because it was going to be released in a very short period of time. So yeah, all the stars were in alignment. We obviously knew that Diane Warren had a song on it. Shelley Peiken, my friend, had a couple songs on it, and a few other writers that we knew of had songs on it. So, yeah. Isn't it amazing how just if one of those things had not happened the way that it happened, we'd not be here talking about that. We'd be here talking about something else, I know, but just, it's very interesting just to see how all those different stages had to happen exactly just like that. Even just you coming in and selecting the track at the beginning. Yes. It could have been another track that you said, I'm really inspired to write that one, but no, it just so happened to be that one.
And for the first song that you write with somebody as well, I mean, usually you sort of get to know each, if a collaboration goes well, you go back with those people and then sort of get into a groove of, working with somebody and finding that real sweet chemistry.
I always relate it to when you make a meal on the first day, it tastes all right, but then you put it in the fridge and you come back the second day and it's like, oh, this is good now. This is good. But you lucked out on the first day that you had like the best thing happen on the very first experience working with these guys.
We did. And the energy with the three of us was kind of magical, and it was also pressurized, it was kind of like, it was, it felt different to anything that I'd worked or people that I'd worked with before, any group. We were really setting a high bar. And so I learned a lot of those guys, and we ended up writing two songs for Dream, the girl group Dream, which ended up, I think, a year later after Genie was number one. It got to number two in the charts, and Independent Women, Destiny's Child was the only thing that kept us off the number one spot. So we did it, almost did it again. We had quite a bit of success with He Loves You Not, the song He Loves You Not, which was our second song.
Love that song. Love that song. I have to share with you, when Genie in a Bottle came out, I happened to be in LA, not as a songwriter, but I was there as a computer animator. And that was my job before getting into songwriting. And there was a big conference that was happening in LA that I came down for. And I remember I'd left the conference for the day and I was driving back to my brother's place where I was staying and just listening to the pop radio. And they said, and here's a brand new single that is just going to be played right now. It's called Genie in a Bottle by Christina Aguilera. And I had no idea who Christina Aguilera was at this point. And I listened to it and I had to crank it. It was one of those moments where I couldn't even remember the drive that I did during that moment that I was hearing it. And I just remember thinking, thank God they're creating such quality music now. You know, I was just so blown away by the writing of it and by the production of it that I just thought, if this is where pop is heading, this is a great thing. I was just so pleased to hear it. And it blows me away that I now get to call you a friend. And, it's really, really cool how that all played out. But just what an impressive song.
Thanks, darling. Well, the 90s was such a great time for songwriters and for artists, and songwriting. The songs were just so hooky, and well, the 90s was clearly my jam. But it was a great time for songwriters because you could actually make a really decent living in those days, just on the album tracks if you wanted to.
Yep, absolutely. I know things have changed. Speaking about songwriters, can you tell me a little bit? I'm very curious to know about songwriter camps. I want to know how the whole thing came around, how it got started, why it got started. If you could just sort of take me through that, please.
Yeah, sure. So 2018, I reached out to a good friend of mine, Richard Harris, who is English, has been in LA for I don't know, 15, 20 years, something like that. And he and I had met at a songwriting festival in Hawaii in 2008. So we'd known each other a little while and we've been working together, writing together, writing with various different artists. And we'd had some success with number one in South Africa with a record with a guy called Elvis Blue. But so Rich and I had known each other pretty well by this stage, and we'd also done a fair amount of talking and mentoring at other festivals and expos as songwriting mentors. And so I reached out to him and said, hey, would you be interested in teaming up and starting a camp, like a songwriting camp? Because we'd discussed it before, at these expos, we'd obviously listened to a lot of songs, people coming in, playing songs that they're pitching either for sync or pitching to A&R. And we really felt that a lot of them weren't ready to be pitched as far as the craft of songwriting. There was a lot of lack of craft and they might have been packaging them up into beautiful CDs or, getting them looking great. But the actual song quality wasn't there. And so we discussed about, hey, wouldn't it be great to, for people who really want to get better at the songwriting craft and learn to become a better songwriter and also be prepared for these expos and festivals, song ready. Why don't we do a camp or a couple of camps a year? So it took us about a year to find a venue, but we found a venue in Palm Springs and I think we did 3 or 4 camps before the pandemic happened. And then we were like, okay, now what? So we started an online sync camp during the pandemic. And we also provided a monthly meet and critiques workshop online. We wanted to help our community and also help people find each other, and also help music supervisors who weren't able to go out to gigs and see new artists find a new talent. So we started the Sync Camp. We're just about to do our 9th one in August. And they've been going super well. And I think the last placement we got was on the new Fast X movie trailer.
That's fantastic.
So it's going pretty well, and we're loving doing it. Because we're both pretty much full-time songwriters as well. Songwriter Camps has kind of been our side hustle, something that we've built on the side. But we love it. We enjoy giving back. We enjoy meeting new songwriters, helping new songwriters either get publishing deals or, help point them in the direction of whatever they need at the time.
Great. I mean, I don't understand anyone who, has the attitude of all the knowledge that I have in my head is mine and mine only, and I don't want to share it with anyone. I just don't understand that. Whatever knowledge you have in your head, it's to be shared. It's to be passed on, because you could end up inspiring somebody that ends up writing your next favorite song.
Absolutely.
Why hold on to that if that possibility exists?
Yeah, be a part of their journey. And it was something that I don't know about you, Rob, but I never had a creative mentor in my career. These sort of like TSA and songwriter camps and other places where you find mentors, they weren't around. My songwriting collaborators were my mentors. Sure, I had great publishers along the way who, had stuff to say, but it wasn't usually on the creative side. And I think having a mentor at your fingertips is so valuable these days to help fast track your career, certainly.
Oh, yes. Yes. I mean, I had my older brother, Greg, who was around, but he lived in Los Angeles, and communications weren't the way that they are now. It was very expensive to make a phone call, so I couldn't really reach out to him all the time. It was more just,
I work with Greg, Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. But it's just, that was my only connection really to the music industry. And it took me so long to find my way in, just because, the way that things are set up now is absolutely incredible. The fact that even during the pandemic that you could connect online with your camps,
yes,
wherever people were, which is great. Now I'm curious, going forward, is it going to be a mix of online and in person, or are you going to go back to fully in person? What's the plan for songwriter camps?
Gone back to fully in person yet, and I think that's really a combination of things. Firstly, we've been super busy, and we've also been doing some curated camps. We've done some camps for UCLA extension course, and also a friend of mine runs a music school in Melbourne. So we've been going out there. They've been coming out here, and now we went out there last December, and we're going back out there this December to do a camp for them. So I think it will be a combination of both. We're hoping to have our in-person again at the Ace Hotel in Palm Springs, which is such a great spot, and it's a perfect hotel for it. The costs have definitely gone up a lot more than pre-pandemic.
That's for everything. Everything's so much
different.
More expensive. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, that's fantastic. I love the fact that you are giving back, that you are reconnecting with so many new songwriters that are coming out, and just helping show them the way and helping them find a way to get their material out there, and introducing them to all sorts of different people in the sync world and the artist world and everything. And the future sounds very, very bright for all of these students that you have coming through.
Yeah, I hope so. We've met so many incredible independent artists that, are just wanting to meet people in the business, and a few of them have never had sync placements before, and now they have because of our camps. So that's incredible to watch somebody's journey and for them to really be out there hearing their voices on these TV shows and trailers, and it's very fulfilling.
That's excellent. Excellent. My last question to you, because I know we're running out of time. Do you have any advice to give to the next generation? Anybody who's thinking about getting into this music industry?
Yeah, I do. There's so many things, but you've got to have a belief in yourself. Now, even if it's a small belief, you've got to work on that to being, you are your own best advocate, your own best CEO, because if you're not, then nobody else is going to jump in and stop being on your team. You have to work super, super hard, get super skilled at an instrument, whether it's your voice, whether it's, a piano or a guitar or whatever you play. Really hone your craft. Don't expect anyone's going to just discover you overnight. You have to work hard. But also, if you've got a dream, keep going for it and going for it. And don't let rejection change that. You're going to have more rejection than somebody with a day job. Absolutely. You have to get used to having rejection and growing a thick skin, because it's part and parcel of the job that you do. But if you have this dream, don't let anybody talk you down off that, I'm going to be this person. Don't let anybody say you're not good enough. You show them you're good enough, but you have to put in that hard work.
Incredible. Amazing words. Pam Sheyne, you're awesome.
No, so are you, Rob.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure for me to just sit back and hear you speak. I could follow you to the end of time, man. It's great.
Well, we definitely need to spend more time together, and
we will.
We need to get some writing in there as well. It's been a little while, right?
It's been a little while. Even just to go a bite to eat or something, that'd be great. I'd just love to spend any minute with you and your family, and hopefully we can do that the next time I head down to LA. That would be great.
Sounds
Pam,
great.
thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Really appreciate you being here and taking the time out to be a part of this.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Thank you. All the best.
Take care.
Okay. Stay tuned for the next episode of Women in the Music Industry, coming soon. Let's embark on this incredible journey together, celebrating the women who are reshaping the music business one note at a time. If you enjoyed hearing this podcast, please take a moment and give it a like, a rating, or a follow. Your support helps immensely. We'll see you next time.